Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this LinkedIn Live. By the way, the first LinkedIn Live of 2024 for us. So let me take one of the last opportunities to wish you also an amazing 2024. Delighted to have with me Joseph McGuire. I will get an opportunity to get to know Joseph in a moment. A bit more. You know about me probably. Giuseppe Conti. I'm teaching negotiation and influencing and also running CABL as a company. Now, before we go into the topic of today, which is quite fascinating, there are a couple of things that we want to know. First, from where you're joining us. So use the chat and let us know where are you based right now, so that we can have an idea about our audience today. The second topic that we would like to hear some more in the chat is what attracts you in to this LinkedIn Live. Is the virtual negotiation element, is being able, to read the faces also of family, friends, or other kind of things. What are some of the things that made you want to join this LinkedIn Live today? So let's try to find out a bit more about where you are and as well about your motivation to join us. So we have France, Italy, Nigeria, Bahrain, Germany, Italy, Switzerland. All right. So, that's already quite a nice variety and a few familiar names and faces. Hello, thank you for joining here. By the way, Jan Patrick is starting to tell us, what's attracted him. The topic of body language in general is something which is appealing to him. So let us know if there is something else in particular then you want to get. Then motivation, nego enhancement, Radek, who is also a negotiation trainer. And so good that you have this mindset of continuous improvement. All right, fantastic. Then let's get started with the topic of today. And first of all, we want to find out a bit more about our guest today. Joseph, can you say a few words about yourself?
Hi, Giuseppe. Thank you so much for the very kind invitation. Absolutely delighted to be here. And any connection with Italy is always a blessing in my life. Yes, I am, as the screen says, I'm a facial profiler. I've worked with face reading, particularly the ancient Chinese tradition of Mien Shiang face reading, which is a 3,000-year-old tradition. I've worked with that for like 40 years now, and I use it in all sorts of areas of business, particularly, I guess, in negotiation, to help my clients communicate effectively, read the people they're dealing with, so they get their message across and they understand exactly what's going on with the other person.
Wow. Okay, fantastic. By the way, if I read some of the motivation, for instance, that people put for joining us is, curiosity about how to tell if someone is being deceptive, honest, uncomfortable, confident, etc. So thank you, Elizabeth, to give us some insight about what may be relevant for our audience. And Joseph, maybe to get us started, why should we pay attention to faces, both before and during the negotiation?
Oh, absolutely. The understanding I work with is that our static facial features reveal a great deal of information about personality, communication style, behavior style, stress triggers and responses, and a great deal more. So that's I say, static facial features. And then we look at the facial expressions, the changes in movement, whether it's eyebrows going down, eyebrows going up, changes in the way the mouth moves, whether the eyes open or closed. There's so many different variations which will tell you about where the person is at right now, whether you've hit a hotspot, as in you've triggered a stress response, or they're emotionally uncertain. They're questioning something about what you've said or what you presented. They're questioning maybe themselves. So there are many different clues revealed in both the static facial features and then the facial expressions. both before and then during the negotiation. And if we're alert, it tells us a lot about what's really going on in real time.
All right. So I mean, that's already something quite interesting. So the static feature and the movements, and you take different kind of things. I mean, and you mentioned about the fact that the static feature can give information about the personality of people and those kind of things. So I mean, uh, what is the importance of different personality negotiation styles? How can we identify them? I mean, let's go a bit deeper on that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. We often tend to we tend as humans to operate from our default position, our perspective, but we need to recognize everybody is different. And there are a number of different, generally speaking, we tend to regard them as being three different personality types in terms of negotiation. There's the person who likes to be in charge, who likes to be more dominant. And typically what we will see with those, they will tend to be much more forward in how they present. They will often speak. There could be two variations. They will look to dominate by speaking a lot, or they will speak in very direct terms. The tone of voice will be very, very, very direct. But in terms of their facial features, you will often see that their eyebrows. Pay a lot of attention to the eyebrows when you're looking at people. If their eyebrows are like pointed down like so, or they're like an inverted V shape, it tells you these are more autocratic type personalities. So they like to be in charge. They like to dominate. That's one personality type. If their eyebrows are more straight across, and particularly then the upper lip is very thin, these are more detail oriented, the more analytical types. So that's the second, and then the third one is if the eyebrows are more curved and the eyes are big and round. These are the ones who need the personal connection. They're about relationship building. So there are just a few very quick clues as to how to recognize three different personality types. And we can go into a lot more detail beyond that because obviously every personality type has different aspects.
Wow. Okay. Excellent. By the way, one thing that I forgot to mention to our audience: this is your LinkedIn Live, right? We are doing this to meet your needs. So, if there is anything in particular that you want to know, feel free to ask a question. We are there to ask your question. So just write it down in the comments that you find on the right hand side. Okay, fantastic. So we said that already, by looking at the way the people stand, the way the people speak, the language they use, and especially the eyebrows. You mentioned that in a number of the example eyebrows, you can already start having an idea about the style of people. Now, when I was reading your post and your article, you also often talks about congruency in communication. Now,
Yes.
what does that mean in the context of negotiation?
Yeah. When people talk about body language, they often talk about the idea that there's only 7% of our communication is in the words, and that's misinformation based on a study done by Professor Albert Mehrabian in UCLA, some 1970 or thereabouts. And I know it's been repeated several times, but people have taken that 7% bit and they've taken it completely out of context. What Mehrabian's study was about what he called congruency in communication. And that means that our body language, our gestures, our tone of voice, our syntax, and our facial expressions all need to be aligned. So, for example, if I tell you I am very happy, it's clear there's no congruency between body language and the words. So you can use that as an extreme example, but we need to pay attention to what's going on behind the words. So when we're listening to somebody, in fact, an exercise I recommend is probably the easiest way to explain it. An exercise I recommend is to watch politicians being interviewed, where they're apparently being very expressive and very emotional. Watch it with the sound on, and then rewind it and watch it with the sound off, and ask if what you're now watching is congruent with what you heard. And you'll often find it's not. It's often just very practiced way of performing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, let's go a bit deeper in the story of congruence. Now, if I remember, the study of Merabian was indicating, the high importance of body and voice exactly in a context where there was no congruency between verbal and non-verbal message. So, so there is a lot of weight put into non-verbal message when we see that there is no congruency between the two, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And in the context of negotiation, I recommend practicing these skills before we go into negotiation. That's why I recommended the exercise of watching politicians, because when we need any skill needs to be practiced. So in terms of negotiation, and we have done some practice, it's a lot easier to tell whether somebody is being congruent in their communication and being and demonstrating real integrity, or whether they're just presenting an image, presenting a position and a proposal, but they're just looking to sell us something rather than they really believe it and believe in the value of it.
Okay, so really practicing watching videos of politicians is a way to be better at the negotiation table in order to spot the people that do not convey congruency in the way they talk, right? That's uh,
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
a key practical things that we can get better at, and then use it at the negotiation table. Let's start with the 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 a few questions. I'm not sure if Radek is making a question or a comment. Face profiling, anything to do with police-driven profiling at all?
Yes, it has been used by many police forces around the world, and I know, for example, like I know the FBI have used it quite extensively. It was used when after 9/11, there was a face reader, a woman called Barbara Roberts, brought in by the Federal Aviation Authority and I think the FBI. And she was asked to help them identify facial profiles of potential criminals or terrorists. Um, I don't go into that space at all, to be perfectly honest with you. Um, I, I, I tend to pick up on people's energies very quickly anyway, so I just prefer to avoid that. But yes, police forces and intelligence agencies do use it.
Okay, interesting. Let's go. There's one more question. Remember, this is your LinkedIn Live, so feel free to ask question. Now, let's see. It's very easy for me to misunderstand others based on facial and body movement. Also, others may misunderstand me. How do I know what others see by my facial and body movements?
Oh, that's a deep one. That's not one that you can easily answer. I don't obviously know Elizabeth, so I don't know how she's presenting. So there's a whole series of questions there from me anyway. But the first thing for me is when we go into a meeting of any description, virtual or otherwise, to make sure we're as relaxed as we can be. And many people go into meetings and even negotiation, even very high level negotiations, feeling very tense. And the reality is we communicate that even if we don't realize we are doing so, because so much of our communication is nonverbal. And we, depending on the state we are in, we trigger what's called a mirror neuron response in other people. So if we're feeling relaxed and happy, whether it triggers a positive response in others, an unconscious positive response in others. So the first thing is to be relaxed and be as calm and confident as we can be, and also then to greet other people with a smile. And it doesn't matter what the context is. If you greet somebody with a smile, it triggers a positive response in them. It tells them that you're not a threat. So if you're not a threat, automatically they feel they can relax more. They're not under pressure. So that's as specific as I would go, because I don't know how Elizabeth actually presents.
Thank you. Thank you, Joseph. Now, by the way, we've been talking about, talking and in face and body. Uh, how important is silence?
Oh, yes. Oh, silence is wonderful. Silence is such a powerful tool. And so many people are, excuse me, so many people are uncomfortable with silence and even afraid of silence. So when I'm training people, I tend to put a clock up on the screen where it just runs for 30 seconds and ask them how they felt after the 30 seconds. And so many people feel really uncomfortable. But when we use silence well, when we become comfortable with silence, it's so, so powerful. And learning to stop talking is a vital skill in negotiation, because when we stop talking and when we relax and be silent, it's amazing what the amount of information our counterpart across the table will reveal to us. They feel compelled to speak, and often they will reveal something that they hadn't intended to say. That proves to be vital information for us, but we have to be comfortable with the silence first.
Mhm. Yeah, interesting because for a long time, silence was only seen as a competitive type of technique, right? Something that makes people uncomfortable. So something that you can use, to get a lot of information, but probably also something that you want to use sparingly because it may not build the best relationship with your counterpart. But some recent research indicated also how silence can also be a way to generate more ideas. Let's say allowing the space for silence is also something that can help the parties to come up with different ideas. Well, when you are in a debate where you have to reply quickly and you keep talking on each other, then we lose the space.
Yeah, it's so often the case, and again, and you'll be very well aware of this. People feel under pressure in a negotiation, and they feel a pressure to say something, to contribute something. But if we just take a breath and go into that place of silence, it allows us to calm down. It creates a space for both parties to think, and it gives, as you say, that breathing space, and then we can engage much more constructively.
Yeah, yeah. Let's listen to another very experienced procurement professional, Jan Patrick. Jan Patrick, is body language universal or culturally deep drawn, unconscious?
Yeah, there's a lot. I think there's a lot from my study. There's a lot that is universal, but there are also significant differences depending on culture. So when we engage with people from a different culture, we need to be conscious of what is their norm. For example, my partner is Chinese, so for us in the West, we would if we're laughing, if we're really happy, we might actually just cover our mouth and move our head like this. But if you see a Chinese woman or a Japanese woman doing that, it means they're actually embarrassed, and we might assume very easily that it's, oh, they're having fun, where it's not that at all. They feel, ooh, it's not a comfortable place for them. So we need to pay attention to the cultural differences. Even cultures where this is thumbs up, this is a positive. In some cultures, it's not a positive at all. So so simple gestures can get you into trouble unless you're really paying attention.
Yeah. By the way, another one to pay attention is the OK sign. The OK sign is something that it may be seen positively in in a number of countries, but if you put your hands in this kind of position in Brazil, well, you may end up going into trouble, right? They may see it as a deep offense. Yes, but by the way, there was the study from Paul Ekman about facial expression and emotion, and he also found some universality across a certain set of facial expression. I don't know if Joseph, you have your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, Ekman and his colleague Wallace Friesen identified 7 universal micro expressions, as they're referred to. There has been a lot of questions raised in more recent years as to whether there are only 7, as to how valid they are. I don't tend to use them a lot, to be perfectly honest. The one I do pay particular attention to is the one that is unilateral, where it's the one side, it's the only micro expression that is unilateral, which is one-sided, and that's where you get a quick tilt of one side of the mouth, and that's the one to signify contempt. And I've certainly, again, I do pay attention to politicians being interviewed, because they're a fascinating study. But I've seen so many politicians being interviewed, and you see that quick, and a micro expression is like that, it's instant. But I've seen that so often with politicians where you get that little tilt, and it could be either corner of the mouth, and then that tells you that they're contemptuous either of the question or the interviewer.
Yeah, interesting. Let's see. I'll keep going with the flow, because we do have an audience that wants to comment and discover some more. So let's listen to Radek. In theory, those who are on the back foot will prefer going forward for a virtual nego, whereas those in having an upper end prior to nego will definitely go for a face-to-face interaction. I wonder if your own experience confirms or denies the above.
Interesting question. I would, my experience is that and it isn't just my experience, is that I haven't seen a preference. But what I would say is those who see themselves as having the upper hand, and they may not actually have the upper hand, but those who perceive themselves as having the upper hand want a quick negotiation, whether it's in person or whether it's virtual. They want it done. They want it quickly. Whereas those who are on, as you say, the back foot here, like to take a little bit more time to prepare, to check whether they can strengthen their position. So they're holding back. But those who are on the front foot, they want it done. They want to get it done, and they want obviously they want to win, but they want it done quickly.
If I take my perspective, from a negotiation professor perspective, then I will say that if you are on the weaker side, then you want to prefer an information-rich type of exchange. So I would be tempted to say that if you are on the weak side, you would rather go for a face-to-face negotiation. Let's say the less communication we have in the exchange, the more it gets competitive. And the worst may be email, of course, when then we lose a lot of the communication channels. So probably people that are on the weak side may feel more comfortable with a virtual negotiation because, of course, it's less emotionally tense, but it may not be in their best interest in terms of maximizing the chance of moving the communication towards a more collaborative style.
Yeah, and there's also that perception of being on the back foot, having a weaker position, and it may not actually be the case. And it's how we use what we have strategically to look to strengthen our position. And those who appear to have a stronger position, it may not be as strong. So sometimes we need to dig beneath what appears to be on the surface, but that requires confidence. And that's a big question. As you know, that the whole issue of confidence is a big, big part of being successful in negotiation.
Yes. And remember, it's not so much important how much power you have, but how much power the other party thinks that you have. So it's really about perceived power, like Joseph was mentioning. Let's take one more question from the audience. We are happy, of course, to have an interested audience. And how to differentiate manipulative and psychotechnician approach versus authentic and trusted? Can you detect the bodies?
Oh, there's a whole seminar in there. I don't. I've done a lot of work in the last couple of years online with former FBI trainers, and I've been one of the people who's influenced me is a guy called Jack Schaefer. Jack Schaefer, he emphasizes truth detection rather than looking for lies. And it resonates very strongly for me, because one of the things I've learned is that when we go looking for lies, we're in a stress state. We are stressed already, and we're not trusting, so we're projecting the fact that we don't trust them, and that automatically creates an uneasy atmosphere. And if they feel we don't trust them, they're going to wonder about us as well. So it just creates the wrong atmosphere. So and there's also Professor Tim Levine. I think he's in Arizona. I apologize for not knowing which university it is, but Professor Tim Levine in the US, he has come up with the truth default theory, where his understanding and his research demonstrates that we're actually orientated naturally towards trust and towards believing what we're told, and it's actually a healthier state to be in than going looking for liars. Because if we're in a place of distrust, automatic distrust, and looking for lies, it would actually create chaos in our society. So I prefer to focus on the trust bit, and the more I'm relaxed with that, the more I find personally is that the more likely I am to spot when some people are being deceptive. And I do work with a lot of people who have experienced being conned or deceived, and helping them to point out what to look for. But there aren't just simple signs. So I'd rather look for the trust.
Mm-hmm. And there is also Paul Ekman that says that in general we are very bad lie detectors. So, if you're not a very experienced in the field like Joseph is, then and you just count on your gut feeling to try to spot lie, you may end up, being, very often wrong with your lie detection, right?
Yeah, the studies often show that even experienced police officers, detectives, etc., they only score like 50% in lie detection tests. So it's probably not the way to go.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. We do have another question from Elizabeth. Okay. How do you approach or undo the impact of a possible wrongful messaging, especially if there is only silence, but you feel discomfort in the room?
Okay, yeah, interesting question. I would say I'm assuming here that you feel that you have delivered the message in the wrong way. So I would just speak up. I would clarify. Have I presented the message? Have I presented this message clearly? Is there anything you would like to ask, or it appears I may have got confused you here. I may have taken, and it tends to create the wrong feeling, the wrong atmosphere. It tends to weaken their position, and it makes it very clear that they're lacking confidence.
Okay. Now, Joseph, I lost you a few times as you were delivering this message. Not sure if the problem was on my side or on your side, but your voice goes going up and down. So maybe if you don't mind, do you mind summarizing again for Elizabeth and for our audience, the key message so that we make sure that everybody gets it?
Yeah, it's probably appropriate to summarize again, because my answer was probably a little bit jumbled anyway. So in a situation like that, I'm assuming what Elizabeth means is that she feels that she has delivered the message wrongly in some way. So what I would be inclined to do would be, if it appears from the silence or the facial expression, the body language of my counterpart or counterparts across the table, that the message has come across wrongly, I would simply say, it appears I may have caused some confusion here. Sorry, my battery was running low. It appears I may have caused some confusion there, and then stop. Not say anything beyond that. and see what their response is. Their response will tell you whether how the message has been received, whether you have actually caused confusion or offense, but not to overspeak. Because if you overspeak, it tells them you lack confidence and it weakens your position.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Joseph. Perfect. Listen, to close our LinkedIn Live, can you give us some practical tips on reading faces during negotiation? I know that I'm asking for a miracle, and you have been studying for years for this. But if you could give us, a few practical tips that can help us to read face during negotiation, that will be very much appreciated by the whole audience.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I mentioned the eyebrows at the beginning, so watch for the movement of the eyebrows. The first thing is when we meet somebody, and this applies even to blind people. When we meet somebody, we give what's known as the eyebrow flash. So we raise our eyebrows. So if somebody doesn't raise their eyebrows when they meet you, even in a virtual space, it tells you that they're probably not very welcoming. Now, there's one caveat there, that they could possibly be on the autistic spectrum, where they're not just registering body language, but generally speaking, if they don't raise their eyebrows, they're not very welcoming. Then the eyebrows themselves, if the eyebrows go down when you are speaking, you're talking and somebody drops their eyebrows, they've stopped listening. So you'd better shut up, because what they're telling you is, it's my turn to speak. I'm not listening to you anymore. So it doesn't matter what you say, even if it's incredibly valuable, they're not listening. So if you see the eyebrows dropping, stop speaking and ask them a question. Draw them out, because otherwise you're wasting your time. A couple of other obvious things would be, when people smile, watch whether the eyes are smiling. And if the eyes don't smile, there's no real warmth in how they're feeling towards you. It's not, they may be doing the social smile where the mouth moves, but if the eyes are not engaged, there's no warmth. So be very careful that all they're doing is being strategic, but there's no emotional engagement whatever with you. So that's a very basic one. A couple of other things. If I can just use both of us, actually, Giuseppe, as examples. We both have this distinct vertical crease here in the forehead area. So it tells you, when you see this is somebody who's a perfectionist. So they go into a negotiation and they are well prepared. So if you're negotiating with somebody who has this deep vertical crease, you better be prepared as well, because they will not be easily impressed. They will certainly not be easily fooled, and they will not quickly come to an agreement unless they're very, very satisfied.
Wow. Okay. I think it is a topic that it keeps coming back. The smile with the eyes, right? So can you say a bit more about what should people be looking at in order to be able to recognize a real smile from a fake smile? I think that will be a nice way to conclude this LinkedIn Live, and giving something that you can apply today immediately with your colleagues, with your family, with your friends, with everyone.
Absolutely, Giuseppe, thank you. And I'll just add one other thing actually about the eyes themselves, but I'll address the question of the smile first. A true smile has four physical components. The corners of the mouth turn up, the lower cheeks pull up, the upper cheek pull up, and the eyes kind of narrow, but the eyes sparkle. There's a sparkle in the eye when the smile is genuine, what we call the full Duchenne smile. So there's those four components, but you'll very frequently see people, again, watch politicians or celebrities get a good facial photo or even a video of them, and you'll see the smile is all in the lower part of the face. It's only really the mouth, but the eyes are not revealing it. And just one other thing in terms of reading faces, pay attention to the eyes themselves. And there's three basic possibilities when you look at the eyes. That the eyes are either exuding warmth, so this is a feeling thing as much as a visual thing. The eyes are exuding warmth, and it tells you, yes, this person is open to real engagement. The eyes are neutral, or the eyes are cold. And you get a feeling, like you'll actually feel it in your body that the eyes are cold. And if you get a feeling that the eyes are cold, make sure you close yourself off emotionally, and you do not reveal anything you don't need to reveal, because this person is observing you purely in a clinical fashion, and they're only there for their own self-interest.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. Joseph, I'm sorry for the people. We are not going to tackle all the questions that we have on the pipeline. I mean, we are going to close it here. As I said, this was the last question. But I would like to thank you very much, Joseph, for revealing us a few gems today that can help us, to get better into our face reading during virtual negotiation. So next time that you're negotiating, maybe check the eyebrows, check whether the eyes are smiling, and this is going to help you to be more successful and you have a better read on the people you're interacting with. Joseph, thank you very much again. Thank you all to our audience for being with us and being very participative with your question. Thank you in particular to Gianpatrick and Radek that asked a few questions. Sorry, Regina, we couldn't take all your comments and questions. And all the very best to everyone for a wonderful end of the day. Take care.
Grazie mille.
Bye-bye.